Stories whisper, stories keep. The fire burns, but you won't sleep. Camp creeps, camp creeps.
They say if you stand inside the gates of Echo Park after midnight, you can still hear the rides running. The carousel music box creaks through the fog. The Ferris wheel groans as if it's carrying ghosts. And somewhere in the dark, faint and broken, you can hear laughter. It sounds like children, but no one's been inside that park for 30 years. The town built fences, boarded the gates, and tried to forget what happened. But places like that don't forget. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they call you back. Welcome back to Camp Creeps. Leah Thomas wasn't supposed to come back to Mill Creek. She'd grown up here, back when the park was still open before the accident. Her father used to bring her every Saturday until the carousel stopped and the sirens started. After that, the gates closed for good. Now, 30 years later, she was a journalist. Not a big one, just a freelancer doing Where Are They Now pieces for local nostalgia blogs. Echo Park was perfect material. She arrived just before sunset, her camera hanging from her neck, a little digital recorder in her pocket. The main gate was still chained, the old archway sign bent and streaked with rust. The paint once said, "Welcome to Echo Park," but the only word still readable was Echo. The air was heavy with that late summer stillness, humid, stale, smelling faintly of oil and wet grass. Leah found a gap in the fence behind the maintenance shed and slipped through. The park beyond was a graveyard of color, carousel horses bleached white by time, the roller coaster collapsed in on itself, the concession stands long since stripped bare by scavengers. But what she noticed first wasn't the sight. It was the sound. There wasn't any. No birds, no wind, no hum of the highway, just quiet. She clicked on her recorder. "Echo Park," she said softly, her voice trembling in the static. "Abandoned since 1989. Locals say it's haunted. Locals say a lot of things." She smiled, trying to sound brave, but the longer she stood there, the more she could swear the air had a pulse, like the silence was breathing. Her phone buzzed, a text from her editor. "Don't stay long. That place isn't safe." Leah almost laughed. "You sound like my dad." But she pocketed the phone and started walking anyway. The first whisper came from the carousel. It was half collapsed, the once bright canopy shredded by years of storms. Horses leaned at awkward angles, their poles rusted through. Some had lost their faces to time, leaving only hollow sockets where painted eyes used to be. Leah lifted her camera and took a slow pan across the scene. Each frame felt like trespassing. The air smelled of old sugar and mold, like candy left too long in a wet pocket. She ran a hand along the flank of a horse. The surface felt wrong, soft somehow. The paint peeled under her touch like dead skin. The wood beneath was warm. "Residual heat," she whispered to the recorder, voice shaking slightly. "Maybe metal underneath. Sunlight retention." But the sun had been gone for half an hour. She took a step back, clicked another photo. The flash burst against the dark and caught something in the mirror above the center column. For a fraction of a second, she saw a child's reflection, a girl in a yellow raincoat, spinning past on one of the horses. Then it was gone. She blinked hard, lowering the camera. Nothing moved. The air felt thicker now, denser. Every breath came with the faint taste of dust and metal. "Echo Park," she said into the recorder, her voice sounding too small. Subjectively quiet, carousel partially intact, no sign of recent entry. She stopped, frowning. The playback light was on. She hadn't pressed play. Static filled the silence, not loud, but steady. Beneath it, the faint chime of a music box, the same tune the carousel once played. And then, laughter. It was soft at first, like a breeze whistling through the beams, but when she turned the volume up, she realized it was a child's laugh. Giggling, high, bright, looping, too perfect to be natural. Her heart hammered. Feedback, she muttered again. Could be wind or... The laughter cut off mid-note. Then, from somewhere deep inside the carousel came a voice, whispered, drawn out, childlike. Leah. Her own name. She spun so fast the camera strap tangled around her arm. The flashlight beam swept across the horses, the mirrors, the ticket booth beyond. Nothing. Hello? She called. Silence. Then a faint creak from the ride's motor housing. The sound of something shifting, something waking. A gust of air moved past her, cold and damp, smelling of earth and burnt sugar. The horses swayed slightly, poles groaning in their sockets. Leah. The voice came again, softer now, closer. Her flashlight trembled. She caught a glimpse of movement, a flicker of color behind the ticket stand. The yellow raincoat again. She stumbled backward, tripping over a broken board. The flashlight clattered from her hand, its beam cutting a thin line across the ground. The dust in that beam was moving, not floating, flowing. It slid across the floor toward her, curling in slow spirals that almost looked like shapes, faces. She grabbed her flashlight and ran. Her breath echoed off the empty stalls as she bolted toward the midway. Each step sent hollow thuds through the old boards, and with each thud came a whisper in the same rhythm. Thud, stay. Thud, stay. Thud, stay. When she reached the ring toss booth, she stopped to catch her breath. The whole park seemed to exhale with her. She turned the recorder back on with trembling fingers. Night sounds, possible animals, park acoustics exaggerating echo. Something in the speaker above her popped. Then faintly, like a lullaby on broken tape, "Don't go." The sound bled into static. Leah stared up at the old loudspeaker. It wasn't connected to anything. The wires were frayed, ends corroded green. She slowly turned off the recorder and whispered, mostly to herself, "I don't like this place." Somewhere behind her, the carousel's music started again. The park grew darker, though the sky still held a smear of dying light. Leah followed the main path deeper in, her shoes crunching over gravel slick with moss. The air had changed, heavier now, damp enough that every inhale felt like swallowing mist. The smell was sharp and sweet, like rusted metal mixed with caramelized sugar. She stopped by a small concession stand. Pop's Kettle Corn. The sign was sun-bleached, the lettering half gone. Inside, the counters were thick with cobwebs, a half-rotted popcorn scoop still sitting in the glass bin. The recorder was still in her pocket. When she pulled it out, it was already running again. Her voice came through first, from minutes ago, describing the carousel. Then, underneath it, another layer. Whispers. At first, they seemed random, the hiss of wind, distant static. But when she turned the volume up, she could make out words, overlapping and layered like multiple recordings. Help. Stay. We didn't mean to. She fell. She stopped walking. The voices were children, dozens of them. Her thumb hovered over the stop button, but she didn't press it. The whispering was strangely rhythmic, almost hypnotic, like a lullaby played through a broken speaker. Then, through the noise, one voice rose above the rest, smaller, clearer, and chillingly close. "Leah, we've been waiting." She turned in a full circle. The midway stretched empty on all sides, nothing but shadows and broken lights. Her breath came shallow. "Who's there?" No answer, only the faint creak of the Ferris wheel turning in the distance, one lazy rotation, its rusted metal crying out like something alive. She started walking toward it. Each booth she passed seemed to hum faintly, a low vibration that grew stronger the closer she got. The park wasn't silent anymore. It was humming, a low frequency that she could feel in her chest. By the time she reached the Ferris wheel, her ears were ringing. The metal towered above her, half its cars hanging at odd angles. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat off asphalt. She lifted her camera and took a shot. Something blinked in the photo, a face reflected in the steel just behind her shoulder. She spun, heart hammering. No one there. When she looked back at the picture, the face was gone. She scrolled to the next photo. The camera had taken 2 shots, one she didn't remember pressing. The second showed the Ferris wheel full of blurred figures, pale outlines sitting in the cars, heads tilted down as if asleep. Her hands shook so hard she almost dropped it. From somewhere above, the loudspeaker crackled to life. The static sounded like breathing, in, out, in. Then a woman's voice came through, warped and soft. "Please remain seated until the ride has come to a complete stop." Leah froze. That exact line had played every time she rode the wheel as a child. "Who's playing this?" she whispered. No response. Just another faint creak, the sound of one of the Ferris wheel cars shifting, metal groaning under invisible weight. She aimed her flashlight upward. The beam caught on something inside one of the cars near the top. The faint shape of a person, hair matted, head slumped forward. Her mouth went dry. "Hello?" The shape twitched. She stumbled back, nearly tripping over an overturned trash can. When she looked again, the car was empty. The humming in the air grew louder, and suddenly her recorder clicked on again by itself. A child's voice. "Don't look up." Her flashlight flickered, dimmed, then died. Somewhere behind her, the carousel began turning again, its warped tune dragging through the night. The whispers swelled all around her now, dozens of voices murmuring at once, overlapping, pleading. "We didn't mean to. It wasn't supposed to stop. She fell. She fell. She fell." Leah backed away, clutching the recorder like a weapon. "Who fell? What are you talking about?" The voices stopped. Then, clear and alone, a single whisper answered. "You did." Her knees buckled. For a second she couldn't breathe. The world spun around her like a ride still turning after everyone's gotten off. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled. She stumbled backward toward the exit path, but it wasn't there anymore. Just more booths, more fog, more park. And the lights, the ones she'd sworn were dead, flickered on, one by one, chasing her through the dark. The fog thickened fast, rolling in like a tide. Leah could barely see 10 feet ahead, her flashlight beam swallowed whole. The path she thought led back toward the gate had twisted somehow. The booths were in different places, the rides closer than they should have been. Every direction she turned, the sound of the carousel followed her. The tune warped and slowed, as though the air itself were dragging against it. She pressed the recorder to her lips. "Echo Park," she whispered, voice trembling. "Possible auditory hallucination, lost orientation, multiple anomalies." The recorder clicked. The light blinked red. Her own voice came through, but not the words she'd just spoken. Echo Park, abandoned since 1989. Her stomach dropped. That was her introduction. the one from earlier in the night. But then her voice kept going. Ride's still intact. Locals say it's haunted. Locals say a lot of things. The same words, but fainter, distant, recorded through a thicker static, as if the file itself had aged 30 years. Impossible, she breathed. The air pulsed with a low hum, like power lines under tension. From somewhere beyond the fog came the faint, rhythmic squeal of metal, the Ferris wheel, moving again. She ran. The path curved around the base of the wheel, and in the dim light she saw them. Figures. Pale, motionless shapes sitting in the hanging cars. Dozens of them. Heads bent low, hands folded neatly in their laps. Her heart thudded. She swung the flashlight toward the control booth. The door stood open. Inside, the console lights flickered weakly, the levers vibrating on their own. She stepped closer, drawn like a moth. The radio on the counter sputtered and came alive. "Welcome, guests," said a cheerful recorded voice, bright through layers of static. "Thank you for joining us for another magical night at Echo Park." Her breath hitched. That voice, her mother's voice. She'd forgotten it until that moment. High, kind, soft around the edges. The park had hired her to record the safety messages. But her mother had died before Leah's 9th birthday in that same accident. The Ferris wheel turned another half rotation. One of the cars creaked loudly. The shape inside it shifted. "Mom." The word slipped out before she could stop it. The shape moved again, a slow, shuddering tilt of the head. And then came the whispers. Not through the air this time, but through her recorder. Thousands of voices all at once, layered like waves. Some laughed, some cried, some simply breathed. "Don't go. Stay. Stay. You never left." She clapped her hands over her ears. "Stop." The park obeyed. For one perfect second, everything went silent. Then the ground beneath her feet vibrated. The fog pulsed in rhythm with the carousel's tune, and the lights began to flare, the midway glowing bright and colorful as though the years had peeled backward. The rides were whole again. The booths filled with toys. The air smelled like popcorn and cotton candy. And there were people, children running, parents laughing, the hum of conversation all around. The park's alive again. Leah's knees gave out. "No," she whispered. "This isn't real." She looked up at the Ferris wheel. The lights spelled out ECHOPARK in perfect blinking sequence. From the carousel, a familiar tune began to play. Clear this time, sweet and cheerful. And over it, through the speakers, her mother's voice returned. "Please remain seated until the ride has come to a complete stop." Leah began to cry. "Mom, please, I don't understand." The laughter faltered. The lights dimmed. The crowd around her, the children, the parents, the workers, all froze mid-motion as though time itself had stopped. Then, one by one, they turned toward her. Their faces were wrong, soft, blurred, eyes hollow like wax melting. In the distance, the roller coaster began to move. She heard the click-click-click of the lift chain climbing, climbing, climbing. And beneath it all, the whispers again, louder now, chanting in broken harmony. She fell. She fell. She fell. Leah stumbled backward, hands pressed to her head. The world flickered. The park around her stuttered like a broken film reel, the colors fading to gray, the people dissolving into smoke. Only the carousel remained, spinning slow, its mirrors flashing light across the fog. And in every reflection, Leah saw herself. Dozens of versions, standing in different places, all holding the same recorder, all whispering the same words. Echo Park, abandoned since 1989. The recorder in her hand grew hot. The static inside screamed, the sound building until it was all she could hear. Then suddenly, silence. Everything stopped. The rides, the fog, the world. The silence was absolute. Leah stood alone in the middle of the park, her breath catching in her throat, though she couldn't see the mist of it anymore. Her flashlight had died completely. The world around her existed only in shades of gray. The rides were still. The air had gone flat and heavy, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums. Then, a sound. The faint creak of metal bending. The carousel was turning again. Slowly, each revolution sent a soft breeze through the midway, carrying the scent of smoke and sugar. The tune was almost kind this time, low and tired, as though it was trying to remember how to be happy. Leah stepped closer, drawn to it. In the broken mirrors, her reflection followed, multiplied 100 times, but the reflections didn't move like she did. When she stopped walking, they kept going. Some of them lagged behind, some faster, some slightly out of sync. Each version of her mouthed something, the same words, again and again. She leaned closer to the nearest mirror, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you saying?" The reflection's lips moved in silence until, all at once, the sound came from behind her. Her own voice. Echo Park, abandoned since 1989. Locals say it's haunted. Her chest went cold. She turned. There, lying in the dirt between the carousel boards, was an old tape recorder. Cracked, its plastic yellowed with age. The sticker on the side read, Mill Creek Gazette, Leah Thomas, her old job, her name. She picked it up with shaking hands. The metal was ice cold, the buttons stiff. When she pressed play, the tape whirred and hissed. Her voice came through, younger, clearer, excited. Echo Park, it said. Closed after the accident of June 14th, 1989. 3 confirmed dead, 1 missing. Local authorities. The tape crackled, the sound warped. Screaming, distant, chaotic. Metal screeching. A child crying. And beneath it all, a woman's voice shouting a name. Leah! The world spun. Her knees hit the ground. Memories flooded in. The roller coaster, the malfunction, the drop, the world going sideways. The snap of a safety bar. Her mother's voice fading in static. She remembered falling. Her breath came ragged, but no air filled her lungs. She looked down at her hands. The dirt smudges were gone. Her skin was translucent now, faint light leaking through her fingertips. The carousel mirrors shimmered, and every reflection turned toward her at once. They smiled. Her voice whispered through the recorder one final time. The carousel slowed to a stop. The music wound down to silence. And in the distance, beyond the fog, a faint child's laugh echoed once. Brief, bright, fading into the static. The park exhaled. Leah was gone. But if you walk close to the gates on a still night, and you press your ear against the rusted bars, you might hear a woman's voice whispering softly from somewhere inside. Echo Park, abandoned since 1989. Then another whisper joins in, and another, until all of them are laughing, quiet and distant in the dark. Some places never really die. They just keep whispering, waiting for someone to listen. So if you ever find yourself near an old park gate, and the wind sounds a little too much like laughter, don't stop. Don't listen, because some places never really die. They just keep whispering. If you made it this far, you must enjoy the dark. So go on, subscribe to Camp Creeps, like the video, and share it so others can sit with us by the fire. We tell stories here every week, stories you'll never forget. But be careful. If you leave without subscribing, well, the next story might come looking for you. This is Camp Creeps, where the stories don't end when the fire dies.